They say there's an old bed and breakfast tucked into the hills outside Adelaide, at the end of a long, winding gravel road few remember how to find. It's not listed anymore. No signs lead to it. And yet, somehow, it still gets visitors. It's called Windmere House. Once a colonial homestead, now cracked and leaning with age. Wide veranda, stone walls, tall windows with green shutters, and a rusted weather vane spinning in winds that never blow. For decades, it was a local retreat run by an older couple, known for their home-cooked breakfasts and ghost stories over red wine by the fire. Then, in 1992, everything changed. That was the year Edward Grail checked in, a man with no past and far too many knives. Over 3 nights, he murdered the entire family who ran the house and one other guest. His method was deliberate, ritualistic. He left notes, etchings in blood, and on the 3rd night, the police found him in the dining room, covered in wounds. He'd stabbed himself 46 times, said he had to finish the circle. They say he died before he hit the floor. And Windmere House was never the same. The property sat empty for years. The furniture was auctioned off. The walls still bear the stains, if you look in the right light. Locals whisper about hearing footsteps inside after dark. They say the windows fog from the inside on warm days. That laughter echoes from the chimney when the moon is high. Most people avoid it, but not everyone. March 2022. 4 friends Mitch, Talia, Reese, and Erin university students on a year break decided to rent Windmere House for 22 weeks. Cheap, secluded, beautiful old stonework, big fireplace, enough bedrooms for space, and thick bush around them for silence. They signed the lease online, never met the owner. Keys were left in a tin box nailed to the gate. Their first week felt like heaven. Wine on the deck, music echoing in the big halls, stories, laughter, no phones, no pressure. The world outside didn't exist. The house welcomed them at first. The fire crackled like it had been waiting. The bedrooms stayed surprisingly warm, and the kitchen, though dusty, worked perfectly. They joked that the place felt alive, but by week 3, Mitch noticed something strange. He kept waking up at exactly 3:03 a.m. every night to the same sound. Not loud, just soft dragging, like someone pulling cloth down the hall, he told Reese. They laughed it off, called it the house settling, but Mitch couldn't laugh it off. Every night, it got closer. The sound crept from the hallway to his door, then from the door to just beside his bed. But every time he turned on the light, nothing but silence, and the faint smell of metal. Then came the footprints, mud prints, barefoot, too long, too thin, leading from the front door, up the stairs, into the attic. But the attic was padlocked shut. They didn't have the key, and none of them remembered even trying to go near it. By week 5, Reese was gone. No note, no bags, nothing. They thought maybe he left in the night, went back to town, called a ride. But his car was still there. Phone, too. All his clothes. His boots by the back door, still muddy. They called his family. His parents thought he was still with them. A missing person report was filed, but no police ever came. They checked. No one had ever received it. The days grew quieter. Shadows stretched longer inside the house. Doors creaked open without wind. Mirrors began to fog on their own, and once Mitch swore he saw Reese in the reflection, standing behind him with his mouth stitched shut. Week 6 passed in unease. Erin began hearing whispers, coming from the vents, from the bathtub drain, from the field behind the house. Talia thought she was imagining it until they both heard their names being called. Not shouted, not screamed, whispered like a lullaby, over and over. At night, Talia saw movement in the windows. One night, she walked the entire perimeter with a torch, saw nothing. But when she returned, the front door was wide open. Inside, on the entry table, was a knife. Old, rusted, and tied with twine was a note. Welcome to the end. They blamed each other, fought, packed bags. But when morning came, the road was blocked. Trees fallen when none had been before. Not storm damage, not wind, just moved, like they had been placed there. Mitch tried cutting a path with an axe. The trees bled, red sap that smelled like iron and rot. Week 8, Erin disappeared. She was there that night. She made dinner, sat by the fire, read aloud from a book of short stories. By morning, gone. No sign of struggle, no blood, just her necklace, lying in the center of the hallway, still warm. The same hallway where the shadows never seemed to move quite right. Talia broke down, screamed at the walls, called her mother from the landline, but the voice that answered wasn't her mother. It whispered, "She's already here," then laughed and hung up. They tried hiking out, found themselves in a loop. The track led them back to the house every time. No signal, no service. They screamed into the forest until their voices cracked. But the birds didn't even stir. By week 12, only Talia and Mitch remained. They slept in shifts, boarded windows, never left the lights off. Every night, someone knocked. Not at the door, on the walls, from the inside, from the pipes, from behind the mirrors. They stopped eating, stopped sleeping. Shadows moved on their own. Sometimes they'd hear Reese calling out, sometimes Erin laughing from upstairs. But when they checked, the rooms were always empty. Except once, the attic door had opened. Just a crack, enough to hear someone breathing. Slow, wet, like lungs filled with water. Until one night, Talia vanished. She was right there, sitting across from Mitch, drinking tea. They talked about the stars, about music, about how they'd survive this. He went to grab another blanket. When he returned, gone. Tea still warm, chair still rocking. Her phone buzzed once on the table. A single message from her own number. "I'm still inside." Week 19. Mitch was alone. He talked to himself, kept the fire going even during the day. He stopped looking in mirrors. They always showed someone else standing behind him. Someone in a butcher's apron, face slashed across the mouth, eyes hollow and bleeding. He blocked the bathroom mirror with a towel. It kept falling. He boarded the attic door. It still opened. Every night at 3:03, he heard footsteps from the ceiling. Then came the smell, iron, rot, and something floral, like cheap cologne, like death pretending to be alive. By week 20, he stopped checking for the source. By week 21, he started seeing them. Reese, Erin, Talia, at first just in dreams, then in reflections, then standing in the corners of rooms, unmoving, their eyes all black. They never blinked, never spoke, just pointed at him. Sometimes he found notes, in handwriting not his own, scrawled across the walls, on mirrors, in the margins of books he'd never read. Things like, "We still see you. Join us. Finish the circle." Week 22, the door opened. The front door, the one that had stayed locked for weeks. It swung wide in the middle of the night, and standing there was Edward Grail, or something wearing his face, pale, shirtless, blood dripping from his mouth like wine, fingers too long. dragging one of the knives from the murders. He walked toward Mitch. Didn't run, just walked. Slow, smiling. The floorboards didn't creak beneath him. The shadows seemed to stretch out to meet him, like they were happy to see him again. Mitch didn't scream, didn't hide. He grabbed the fire poker and swung it at the thing. It went through. The air turned cold, thick. The ghost smiled wider and whispered, "You're the last." They never left. They just joined the walls. Mitch ran, out the door, down the track, over the fence. And this time, the road was there. The trees didn't move. The sun rose. He flagged down a car at dawn. They say he told the truth in court. Everything, from start to finish. He showed them the photos, the scratches, the torn-up guest log. He screamed at the judge when they tried to call it trauma, hallucination, isolation disorder. But he knew what he saw, what he survived, what was still inside that house. They found no trace of Reese, Erin, or Talia. They did find blood in the walls. 4 different DNA profiles, all matching the missing. Names scratched into the woodwork behind wallpaper, all in the same handwriting. Mitch was deemed unstable. They placed him in a psychiatric facility on the coast. He hasn't spoken to his parents since. He won't eat meat, won't drink tea, won't sleep without light. But at night, he still talks to someone. The staff say he won't sleep unless the lights are on. He covers every mirror with paper. He never touches a knife. He won't go near windows after dark. And every so often, he sits up in bed and asks, "Do you see him too?" No one answers, because sometimes they do. A man standing in the corner, blood across his chest, dragging a knife behind him, smiling, waiting.
There's a shadow in the hallway and a voice beneath the floor. I lock the doors, I hold my breath, but it's closer than before. A cold wind in the mirror, footsteps on the stairs. I feel it watching silently, but nothing's ever there.